Okay, so welcome to another video. It is actually the end of the week. I forgot to film an intro. I think I said that at the start of every single video. I will quickly show you this week's training and then I will give you a bit of an update on some things that have been going on.
I'ma make time, you make time. I'll make time, you make time.
Okay, so pause squats and bench press day. Overall, it was a really good session. I mean, it's the last week of the block, so things are a little bit heavier this week and they're not moving 100% brilliantly just because obviously I am under more fatigue as the block comes to an end. But the execution of these pause squats, I was overall pretty happy with. I think as the block's gone on, I've definitely noticed a bit of a carryover. Like on my normal squat day on a Saturday and my comp squat day, I'm definitely a lot better at finding my midfoot and keeping that pressure over it. The only thing I'm really still struggling with is just moving that bar position on my back during reps when it gets more difficult. But that is just something that I think is going to take time. It's a habit I've gotten into over years and years of squatting, and it's something that I've not really focused on before, so it's something that I really need to address now, and that's why I'm going to keep these pause squats in for a few more blocks as well. But the 125 moved pretty well, and then I went up to 130 for my 4 sets of 5, and again they moved fine, nothing really to report. The RP didn't really go above a 7, which is what the goal was for this block with these pause squats. I'm not doing these to fatigue myself, I'm just doing these to drill in extra like technique work and just to really focus on that bar positioning on my back. The only thing I did notice is as the weight got hit, like, it felt harder, and as the sets went on, I did halfway through my sets start to transition and move my thumb. So I'd go from my thumb wrapped around the bar to a thumbless grip kind of like halfway through my set. And that's something that I'm not really happy about. Like I want to maintain my positioning throughout the entire set. So I might try on next block a thumbless grip on squats just to see if I find that feels better and it stops me from moving the bar around as much. Then went on to bench press. So this is my 2 count pause single day. 97.5 last warm-up moved pretty well, so I jumped up to 107.5, and you will be able to tell it's definitely not a 2 count single, but I'm not too mad about it. Like, it was still a decent long pause, definitely longer than what I will get in a comp, so that is kind of the main goal with this day. 107.5 still moved well, and this entire block, in all honesty, bench hasn't felt great, so to be able to hit 107.5 with a long pause on week 4 on my secondary bench day where my body is under a lot of fatigue, I can't be mad at. Then went on to 97.5 for 4 sets of 6, which I'm fairly confident is a rep PB. Pretty happy with that. Everything moved well. I can't remember if this is my first or second set here, but every set moved the same, so I'm really happy with that. And then I went on to do my Larsen press after, which you will see when I get to the end of my Larsen press. So I did rush the set, as always with Larsen. I need to get out of the habit of that, but I did rush my 10s on Larsen, and then I went to re-rack the bar at the end and missed the rack, so that wasn't so fun. I managed to catch it and save it, so it wasn't like a disaster or anything, but it definitely woke me up. But overall, it was a really good session. I did end up training super late, so I'm not really too mad with the fact that things weren't perfect, and things did move pretty well, considering I don't think I started training until 9 o'clock. I didn't finish until 10:30ish, which for me is really late, so overall, it was a good session, a good start to the last week of the block. I'll just let this clip play out and then I will talk you through my Saturday session.
Say so. Only if you say, only if you say, only if you say so. Stop playing with me, girl, stop playing with me. Know you wanna stay with me, so just come stay with me. We could be on the road.
So SPD Saturday. So this was the heaviest session of the block. My main goal for this block was basically just to match last block's numbers, if not exceed them slightly. So I ended up matching last block's numbers. So I'm pretty happy with it. Here is my last warm up on squats at 147.5. It kind of felt a bit slow, so I didn't want to jump the 15 kilos that I'd planned to 162.5. I decided to just do 160 for my top triple, which matches what I did last block. And it is slow, but it's nowhere near as slow as it was last block. So although I was annoyed with the fact that I did 160 and it didn't feel really, really comfortable, which it obviously was never going to, it matches my PB triple, I compared this to last block and I was a lot happier. It's so much faster, it's so much more controlled, and the execution is just 10 times better. So I am really happy with this top triple, even though in the moment I didn't feel like I was. So everything moved well there. And then I went on to my back offs, 130, 3 sets of 7. And as I have said in every video of this block so far, my squat back offs on a Saturday are always going to be light. It is purely just to reinforce movement and technique, to keep that pressure over midfoot and focus on that, to keep that bar positioning tight on my back. and to allow my knee to recover. So the reason I'm not pushing these back offs like I used to is because I want my knee to recover as quickly as possible, and it is definitely feeling a hell of a lot healthier than it did last block and the blocks before. So I'm definitely onto a winner here. So my 130, 3x7, really comfortable, move really easily. I'm definitely keeping position a lot better than I had previously. So overall, I think squats were a win. I'm really happy with how this block ended, even if I am a little disappointed I didn't load heavier on the top triple. I know I could have done 162.5, but it would have been so much harder than I needed to do, so there was no point. So then I went on to bench. Bench or block, as I mentioned earlier in the video, has not felt brilliant. So I did 102.5 as my last warm-up, and I really wanted to hit 112.5 again. And I did. And I am happy with it, but you'll see here the pause definitely was not good enough. It was pretty much touch and go, which I am not okay with, but it's fine. 112.5 at the end of a block where bench hasn't felt brilliant is definitely a win. Whether it was well paused or not, it's still a win, right? So then I went on to my back offs and I did 2 sets of 4 with 102.5. They were definitely harder than I wanted them to be, but it is a PB, so I'm really glad I did it. And they didn't move badly at all, to be honest. Like, it was just a lot of work that I didn't need to be doing. So I did 2 sets at this weight, and then I did drop down to 100 for my last 2 sets of 4, which moved really well. Like, everything was fine. It's so, like, I forget it in the moment, but when I look back, like, it's so cool that I'm benching over 100 for reps regularly now. Like, at my last comp, I literally benched 105. And I think I did 100 for a triple before my last comp, and I was ecstatic about it. And now I'm managing it for sets of 4. So overall, really happy with how that went. And then I did just have my Larsen press, as always. 3 sets of 7, 85 kilos. I didn't rush it as much as I rushed my Tuesday Larsen press, but it was definitely still rushed. So I'm not overly happy with it, but it moved fine. It moved pretty well. So overall, it's nothing really to report on. It wasn't anything too bad. I will talk you through at the end of this clip and this training session, something that's been going on with my back. But essentially, when I get onto my deadlift videos, I didn't go as heavy as I'd intended to because of an issue I'm having with my back. I will, like I say, explain more as we get further into the video. But I did 150 as my last warm-up on deadlifts, and it moved pretty well. I had a bit of a mental block for this entire deadlift session, which is why I think this 170 top triple wasn't very well executed. It matched last block's top triple, but it was definitely slower. And when we see the third rep in a moment, I'm not convinced I fully locked out either. Like, I don't feel like my shoulders were right back. But one thing I am happy with actually though is, although it was a grindy rep, I didn't lose grip, which is something I have struggled with the last few months when it's gotten to heavy, like, top singles and things on deadlift. So I am happy with that, even if the lockout wasn't brilliant. Then I had my back offs. It was supposed to be 4 sets of 5 with 150, but I ended up doing 140 instead, just because, as I mentioned briefly, my back didn't feel great. So I did 140 instead, and it moved really well. It was super comfortable, and yeah, it was just getting the volume in at that point. But I will let this clip play out, and then I will talk you through what's been going on with my back in the next clip. Okay, so as I hinted to in my SBD Saturday clip, I have an injury. I have developed a back injury, and it's not the first time I've had a back injury, which is why I think I'm taking it so badly. A little bit of backstory, I guess. So back when I was a junior in 2019, I competed at the Commonwealth, and then about 5 or 6 weeks later, it was British Juniors. Now, I was going to do both. I did Commonwealth, and it was fine. I did that injury free. That wasn't a problem. But somewhere between the two, I started to develop some lower back pain. And as the weeks went on, it kind of got progressively worse, but I sort of just trained through it thinking that it would kind of just go away, or hoping that it would go away, which was really naive and stupid of me, and I shouldn't have really done that, but it's fine, it's in the past now. But I did British Juniors, and I definitely shouldn't have. I had a terrible performance. I was in agonising pain the entire day. I walked around with a hot water bottle on my back literally the whole day. I was laying down on it between attempts. And yeah, to this day, I regret doing that competition, but it is what it is. From there, I tried to rehab it. It didn't really get any better. Well, I thought it had. Around, I think it was like March the next year, just before we went into lockdown, it was about 2 or 3 weeks before we went into lockdown in 2020, my back actually went when I was deadlifting. I thought I was better, I clearly wasn't, and my back actually kind of went. And I think it was probably just a muscle spasm, but I'm not really sure what happened. But essentially, I couldn't even walk unaided for a few days, and it took me a good few weeks to even be able to walk around pain-free. So that was awful, as you can imagine, especially because I was only like 19 at the time, 20, 21, I don't know. Either way, I had that injury, and I'm actually kind of thankful for lockdown in a way, because it forced me to rehab it, but also rest from heavy lifting. And that was something I was going to struggle with if the gyms were still open. So I got over that injury, but with that comes a mental block. And anyone that's had a back injury probably also has suffered from this, potentially still does, of where anytime you feel a slight bit of pain in your lower back, you associate it with the fact that you're going to get injured again. And that is something I have had to convince myself isn't going to happen for months and months and months. And I'd say it's only really been the last 6 or 7 months where I've believed it. And I've noticed that my lower back is the strongest it's ever been. Now, with that, I am someone that is quite prone to getting a bit of a lower back pump. And it's not something I worry about, but it's something that does happen for me. And it even happens when I'm just walking. Like if I go on a longer walk, it's quite common for me to have a bit of a lower back pump, which I know isn't ideal, but it's just something that kind of happens to me sometimes. And usually I've noticed it just kind of comes down to lack of mobility. Like if I've been slacking off on my mobility, I notice that my hips and my lower back and things just tighten up, which is kind of normal, and it's just something that I have to be strict with. And the last few months, since my knee issues and everything, I have been a lot more strict with my mobility and with almost treating my body like I'm more of an athlete and just getting it more mobile, allowing it to kind of move a bit better and just, I guess, not feel as sluggish. Like I've definitely felt like the last few months or so, I've felt a lot more sluggish and heavier in myself, even though I'm not actually any heavier, if you understand what I mean. So basically, rambling on, long story short, every time I get a bit of back pain, I reassure myself, and I have to sit and have a word with myself and say, no, this is just your mental block. This is a mental block. You're just worried about getting injured again. It's a fear of your old injury returning. That's not going to happen. And I kind of have to just say that to myself. And that's exactly what I did last week. So at the end of my last training block, my 5-week training block that I did before this one, I did my 170 top triple on deadlifts again. And then I did fairly heavy back offs, and it was fine. I did feel, and I kind of denied this at the time, I guess a little bit of a sprain type kind of pain. Can't get my words out. A bit of a sprain in my lower back, but it was nothing for me to really worry about. It's really common for me to have like DOMs and a bit of aching and pains the day after a really heavy SBD day. Like the last session of the block, typically the next day I do ache. And it's not something I worry about because a little bit of movement the next few days and I'm absolutely fine. Even just the next day, like I'm absolutely fine. So that happened last block and I kind of just wrote it off. And also I was then going straight into a lighter week anyway because my block just gradually gets heavier, which is obviously what a lot of people do. Now, it got to the last week of this block and I was just more aware of my lower back than I had been in a long time. And I was just putting it down to that mental block again. I even had conversations with people where they even said to me, you know, if I hadn't had the injury years ago, I wouldn't even be second guessing myself. But unfortunately this time I think I jinxed myself and I did my SBD day and it was fine. Like nothing bad happened, nothing went. It wasn't anything major like that. But it got to, I think about halfway through bench, and I don't know if it was my own fault, I was potentially kind of overextending my lumbar spine, which I am very conscious not to do, but it might have been that. But as I got like halfway through bench, I noticed my lower back was just kind of tightening up, which again, does happen sometimes. Like my lower back's never feeling 100%, but it was fine. I got through bench, I kind of just rested for a little bit longer than I normally would before I started deadlifting. And then when I went on to deadlifts, now actually deadlifting, I had absolutely no pain. It was absolutely fine. I was really nervous going into my top triple, which I think is why I executed so slowly and I wasn't very happy with it. But yeah, I had to really just kind of mentally prepare and be like, no, you're not going to get injured. I had to really have a word with myself about that. And then I did the top triple and I finished it and I was like, I feel the same. I feel no worse than I did before. But one thing I was conscious of was my lower back was still feeling pretty tight and it didn't feel great. So I lowered the weight of my back offs to 140. They were supposed to be 150 and they moved really easy. They were really comfortable, really fine. But I noticed after each set, the tightness got a bit worse and a bit worse. So by the time I finished, I spent maybe like half an hour just stretching everything out, just getting everything moving around and just checking that everything was okay. But it didn't feel okay. Like it really didn't. And that night, I kept putting heat on it. I kept trying to just keep it moving just to kind of stop anything from seizing up too much. But obviously overnight when I'm sleeping, that's going to happen. And I was awake most of the night in pain because my back was just so uncomfortable. I couldn't sleep comfortably. I even tried having a pillow between my legs and stuff like that, but I could not get comfortable. The pain was constantly there. And then all of Sunday, yesterday, because it's now Monday, I had pain. Again, I was really conscious to just keep it moving. I went on little walks. I used the cross trainer just to loosen off everything around my pelvis and to keep things moving. And I did some mobility work and it definitely helps. Like the more I move, the more it feels better. But even today, so it's now Monday. So last night, again, hardly any sleep, lots of pain, not what I need right now. It's now Monday and I'm still in pain, like a lot of pain. I know it's only been a couple of days, but it's not the sort of pain I was expecting just to go away. So I think, and I'm not going to completely diagnose myself, I don't have a clue, I'm not qualified to do that. But as far as I can tell, it's in the SI joint area, and I think it's just a bit of irritation. And I don't think it's going to cause a massive problem. It's not going to stop me from lifting, it's not going to stop me from training, but it might stop me from competing. I don't want to compete if I can't give my best. I would rather just pull out of the comp, let someone else have the space, and do a different regional later in the year to qualify for next year's British. I am going to go and see someone later tonight to get looked at properly, get some adjustments done, and I've been given some exercises by a friend who's a chiropractor, so I'm just going to play it by ear. But I want to just pop in and put this in the video and just be honest about the fact that I don't know if I'm definitely going to be competing. My lower back is flaring up and I'm not willing to let myself get a serious injury again. I would rather just have a long off season and just get stronger, even if, and it's not going to mean this, but even if it meant missing out on next year's British. I would rather that, because I'm in this sport, like I want to be in this sport for as long as I possibly can. I'm not going to just do a comp for the sake of doing a comp. Like I've learned from my mistakes when I was a junior, when I did the British, which I actually didn't need to do. So I just want to add that into the video. Definitely rambled way too much. Hopefully kind of makes sense what I'm talking about. I will give an update in the next video as to whether or not I'm doing the comp. I should have hopefully made a decision by then. And hopefully I can pop in and just say how things are going. But obviously I'm going to have to adapt my training plan anyway. So we'll just kind of play it by ear and I will give updates along the way. But I hope you have enjoyed this video. I was going to sit and talk about my diet in this one, but obviously I have other things to talk about. But I hope you've enjoyed the video. I will see you in the next one. Please like it if you've enjoyed and subscribe.
On the West Coast, so it's late night. I'ma make time if you make time. I'ma make time if you make time. I just wanna see the top.